We have a problem. Sukuna is looking completely unbeatable right now. Is there anyone that can beat this Heian era beast? Well, yeah. In fact, there are a number of characters that I think have a chance of beating him, some of which even I wasn't expecting. But first, we have to talk about a couple of characters that definitely can't beat him, like Maki and Toji. As much as I love these two, I don't think either one has a way to single-handedly defeat Sukuna. Even if they had weeks of prep time, they just don't have the stats to keep up. Sure, they are strong and fast, but if Toji couldn't even beat Teen Gojo, there is no way either of them could ever have a dream of beating Sukuna, unless Maki gets even more power-ups, which, I mean, Gege's already done too, so why stop there? Another character with no chance is Geto. While he is a special grade, Geto has no way to touch Sukuna. This is mostly because there are no cursed spirits that are able to come close to Sukuna, besides potentially cursed Rika, but he never had her in his possession. Maybe if he had like all 16 registered special grades, and the disaster curses and Mojito in his arsenal, he could stand a chance. But even if he did have all that, I don't think his odds would be that high. Special grade cursed spirits are crazy strong, but from what we know of them, they don't scale anywhere close to Sukuna's full power. Even Jogo, one of the most powerful special grade cursed spirits, was only equal to 8 or 9 of Sukuna's fingers. This means it's likely that even the ones that were stronger than Jogo, like Mojito, Kuroushi, or Cursed Noya, probably wouldn't be stronger than 12 fingers at best. And again, that's assuming Geto would have every single special grade at his disposal, which just isn't realistic. Even Maximum Uzumaki wouldn't do much against Sukuna, as he was able to survive a Hollow Purple, which is much stronger than the Maximum technique. He just has no way to effectively beat Sukuna, which is really disappointing considering he is a special grade. Now let's talk about Hakari. I'm gonna be honest, Hakari does not stand any chance. Like, yeah, if he gets Jackpot, that might help him, but will Jackpot really heal him fast enough to survive Strong Dismantle? Like, we know it heals organs decently fast, but that's different than getting cleaved in half. Let's also remember that he actually has to get Jackpot before Sukuna kills him, which is not guaranteed, and then he has to kill Sukuna within 4 minutes before his Jackpot runs out, or he will have to face Sukuna with no defense while the next Jackpot is getting cast. Even if he lands a Jackpot, he probably won't be able to do much damage to Sukuna, as it could barely damage Kashimo while in Jackpot, and Kashimo could barely damage Sukuna. As much as I love Hakari, he is not facing Sukuna and seeing the light of day. Lastly, we have Miwa, but her case is a bit different. See, Sukuna is probably the only character that can force Miwa to use her true power, but if she does that, it will be too much for our feeble minds to comprehend. As a result, if we ever see these two face down, it will probably be with Miwa in a weakened state for our own good, and as a result, she will probably lose. Okay, now let's move on to some characters that can actually beat Sukuna. One of the most interesting cases, in my opinion, is Higuruma. I think Higuruma actually has a decent chance of beating Sukuna because the advantages from his domain are just so good. Confiscation will prevent Sukuna from using his technique in general, which eliminates the threat of ranged attacks, which is one of Higuruma's weak points. It also disables Strong Dismantle, which is the largest threat Higuruma would face. But that's not the only advantage his domain would provide. The main advantage is the Executioner's Sword, which is essentially a one-hit kill on any opponent. That's literally what it says. Anyone caught by this sword will die without exception. Higuruma could literally trip over a rock, accidentally cut Sukuna's pinky finger, and that would be enough to kill him. It's also worth mentioning that his domain would likely prevent Sukuna from opening his own domain, as Deadly Sentencing prevents any and all violence, which likely includes lethal domains. Higuruma also just has him energy. He is a true prodigy of Jujutsu, as he was able to understand concepts in the Gojo vs Sukuna fight that even seasoned sorcerers were struggling to understand, and he also created his own domain with no formal training in Jujutsu. However, it would not be a free win for the lawyer. The first roadblock he would overcome is actually finding Sukuna guilty of a crime. This shouldn't be too hard as it is Sukuna, but we really have no idea what kind of crimes Judgeman might pull for Sukuna and what kind of evidence Higuruma might be provided. He is obviously at an advantage here over Sukuna, as he does have a long history of successful cases, but it's still not guaranteed. The other issue is his physical prowess. We know he can slightly outpace Yuji's natural body, which is quite strong on its own, but that doesn't mean he can keep up with Heian Sukuna, who was able to overwhelm Kashimo even when he had increased speed. This means even if Higuruma gets a confiscation, he might not have a big enough advantage to win. He would also have to figure out a way to deal with Komotoke, but if he is smart enough to come up with a game plan to get Executioner's Sword on the field, I think he might stand a chance. Not a good one, but realistically, he just needs one opening. He just has to slip a jab and stab. Next, I want to talk about a character that you probably want me to talk about as well, Takeba. Takeba could do it. He 100% could kill Sukuna if his sense of humor allows it. Takeba's ability comedian basically lets anything he finds funny happen. So if he thought it would be funny for Sukuna to get crushed by a comically large anvil, that would happen. If he thought it would be funny that every time Sukuna used his ability 10 Gojos would spawn, that would happen. If he found the idea of Sukuna diarrheaing himself to death, that would happen. The obvious issue here is that Takeba doesn't know how his ability works, so there's no way for him to manipulate what he finds funny. Anything that would happen to Sukuna would have to happen by chance. We also still don't have a great idea of what exactly Takeba's sense of humor is, and that adds complications to his possible success. If he has really abstract humor, he might not have a great chance of conjuring a way to beat Sukuna, but if he likes darker slapstick humor, the odds of killing Sukuna are much higher. There is also the aspect of emotions that weighs in too. For all we know, in the face of Sukuna, Takeba might not feel any emotions or any inclination towards humor, as he's basically facing down death itself. In this case, his ability is all but useless, and he stands no chance of winning. But on the other hand, he could be the type of person that laughs to deal with trauma, in which case he has a good chance. Only time will tell where his humor lies. Let's take a second to talk about Yuji. Right now, Yuji realistically has no way to beat Sukuna, but he is the main character of Jujutsu Kaisen and is the character that thematically has the best chance of beating the King of Curses. We know he's superhuman and borderline indestructible, but even now we still don't know what any of his abilities are. There are plenty of theories on what his ability is, and right now it seems like it's either soul swapping or some sort of body transformation, but besides that we really have no idea what direction this fight would go. Okay, it's time to talk about a dead person. Yuki Tsukumo is a character that I think could potentially beat Sukuna if they ever met, or she could at least force a draw. Yuki's ability allows her to hit obscenely hard, like rip through flesh with a blunt attack hard, like one-shot a special grade cursed spirit hard. She basically invented the category of special grades on her own, and there is a reason for it. If she approaches Sukuna in top condition and uses Garuda effectively, I definitely think she could land some hits on Sukuna. One hit might not be enough to rip through his flesh like it was for Kenjaku, but a hit to the head would definitely be enough to give him at least a bit more brain damage and maybe stun him before slamming him with a few more heavy punches. I think this is really a first hit wins kind of deal. Yuki could definitely beat Sukuna if she stuns him or incapacitates him with her punches, but what if he strikes first? Well, then she can just force a draw. If she got cut down and survives, she could sacrifice herself to create a black hole, and unlike Kenjaku, Sukuna has no way to defend against this. No matter how powerful Sukuna is, there is no way for him to survive a black hole unless he secretly also has an anti-gravity technique. He is getting spaghettified, and then the two of them will die together, ending their fight in a tie. Now, this tie could also end in the complete destruction of the globe, but that kind of risk is just associated with Yuki. Next, we have another special grade, Yuta. If Yuta faces Sukuna, it will be hit or miss. It really depends on what techniques he has at his disposal with copy. For instance, if his pool of techniques to draw from is what we saw at the end of Sendai, he's probably not going to fare too well. Maybe he could use sky manipulation for defense depending on how it interacts with strong dismantle, as manipulating the space around Yuta could affect where strong dismantle can land, but other than that, I don't think he would really stand a chance. He doesn't seem to have any techniques that are purely offensive besides Rika's beam, and even that wasn't too strong. He does have access to cursed speech, but that probably wouldn't be too effective either, as the larger the power between the user and the target, the less effective the words are, and the more rebound the words have on the user. However, if Yuta happened to copy other people's techniques after Sendai, like Angel's Jacob's Ladder, he might stand a chance. Jacob's Ladder appears to be the most effective technique when dealing with Sukuna, as it did more damage than even Hollow Purple in a matter of seconds. The usage of this technique could also open the door for Yuta to copy another technique, Strong Dismantle. While we don't know the exact condition to copy a technique, it's heavily implied that all he has to do is have Rika eat a piece of the target. And if that is the case, using Jacob's Ladder could open the door for Rika to devour a part of Sukuna, giving Yuta access to Strong Dismantle. While it would be really satisfying to see Sukuna get cut down by Strong Dismantle, there are too many things that would have to line up for me to say it's likely to happen. I still think Yuta could beat Sukuna with just Jacob's Ladder, but even then, the odds would be barely in his favor. While we're talking about Jacob's Ladder, we might as well talk about Angel. Angel has a technique that was literally meant to beat Sukuna. She has an ability that can literally just shred him from a distance. If there is anyone besides Yuji that thematically has an advantage over Sukuna, it is Angel, as they go back like 1,000 years. This means she not only has a technique advantage, but a plot advantage as well. Obviously, Strong Cleave would still be a problem for her, but she can fly, which gives an added dimension of mobility that no one else really has. That's it for individual characters, so let's move on to some of the pairs of characters that I think could do really well against Sukuna, starting with Yuki and Todo. But first, please consider subscribing. I don't ask for subs often, but over 90% of my viewers are not subscribed. If you've made it this far in the video, it's pretty likely that you enjoy the content. Subscribing is the best way to stay up to date on new releases. So if you never want to miss a video, you should just hit the button. Honestly, Todo and Yuki is just a duo that I really wish we got to see. Obviously, this wouldn't happen because one is dead and the other has no technique anymore, but let's just pretend and talk about how sick this fight would be. Boogie Woogie plus Star Rage is an insane combo. It's essentially teleporting a living bomb to wherever there is a source of cursed energy. And in this fight, there would be at least 5 sources of cursed energy. 3 sorcerers, Kamotoke, and Garuda. This gives Todo plenty of options when it comes to switching, especially since Garuda can be positioned by Yuki. They could even swap Garuda and Kamotoke to give the cursed tool to Yuki or Todo, giving the duo an even bigger advantage. And don't forget that Yuki is the one that trained Todo, so they would have insane synergy as well. I have no doubt that as long as Todo is alive, these two could win. There are so many ways they could easily gain an advantage that I honestly kind of have a hard time seeing them lose. Obviously, Todo dying is a lose condition for them, but even then Yuki can still just force a draw. It still wouldn't be easy, but I think they're more likely to win than they are to lose. Next, let's talk about Yuta and Hakari, the two prodigies of Jujutsu High. When teamed up, they probably still can't stand a chance. Unless Yuta has Jacob's Ladder or a strong dismantle, as we said earlier. I think their best chance of survival would be for Yuta to stay at a distance, and for Hakari to be up in Sukuna's face while he has Jackpot, as he would be very good at absorbing hits in this state as he does seem truly unkillable. Unfortunately, as we said earlier, his offenses are not that strong, so he would most likely have to distract Sukuna while Yuta sets up Jacob's Ladder or strong dismantle. That being said, much like Yuta in a 1v1, if they don't have strong dismantle or Jacob's Ladder, they don't have a way to win. And in that case, I do think these two just straight up lose. Next, we have Yuta and Higuruma. This one could go a lot of different ways, but the most direct way for this duo to beat Sukuna is for Higuruma to get the Executioner's Sword and for Yuta to use Cursed Speech on Sukuna to freeze him. This would allow for a super quick and easy win, but even if they didn't have Executioner's Sword, I think they still stand a chance. Even just a confiscation would give them a huge advantage, as it would allow them to fight 2v1 against Sukuna while he has no cursed energy. I think this is one of the few situations where I do not think Sukuna has much of a chance of winning. Not having any cursed energy and having to go up against Yuta is pretty much a death sentence, and it would be even worse if we add Rika into the mix, making it a 3v1, or if Yuta had Jacob's Ladder. I know I've said it like 1,000 times, but that is like one of the biggest conditions for Sukuna to lose. Regardless, if Higuruma and Yuji end up failing to do their job, hopefully Higuruma survives and this duo can finish him off. Speaking of Yuji, he is part of the next duo I want to talk about, which is Yuji and Yuta again. I know this has basically become a Yuta glaze fest, but he just works so well in 2v1s because he's so versatile. But that's not the reason I think they would win this time. This is the plot armor duo. If there is two characters that I think could face Sukuna and live to see another day, it is the duo that are the main characters. I don't really have that much to say about these two, but I think their strategy would be similar to Hakari and Yuta, which we already covered. I really wish I could have gone into how Yuji would do against Sukuna, but unfortunately we got massively blueballed this week. Once we learn Yuji's ability, let me know if you want me to do a whole video on just him versus Sukuna. Could be interesting to look at. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. If you are subscribed, maybe become a member or just watch another video. Thank you so much for the support so far, and I will see you next week for another video.